Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the All Portable Discussion Zone. It's a bi-weekly live stream all about amateur radio portable ops. With me this evening are the show's two co-hosts, Dan, KC7MSU, and Brian, W7JET.
Hi,
And I
everybody.
am also pleased to introduce to you tonight's guest, Anne, KC9YL.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Also, a warm welcome to all of you guys who are watching, guys and gals who are watching on the live chat. If you have a comment or a question, go ahead and throw it in the chat feed, and we'll do our best to respond to it. And also, don't forget that this show is converted to a podcast and is available through most podcast players about 24 hours after the show. And finally, you can become a supporter of the channel by clicking on the link below and the join button, and will give you exclusive access to certain benefits that we have that like giveaways and things like that. So with that, let's get caught up on what's been going on the last few weeks in the world of Brian, Dan, and Charlie. Go ahead, Brian, and let's hear what you got to have to say.
So let's see what happened with me in the last 2 weeks. Well, I got the goat. I think we talked about that because I think that happened the last time. Done 1 or 2 summits since then, and I've been mostly active. Did a lot with the. You know what? Let me turn a light on in here because I had to close the window because of the anyway. We'll fix that in a minute. So had to do I did the 13 colonies. And Eve actually got a clean sweep on the 13 colonies on phone. Still working on her getting CW. I got all but GB13 COL on CW. They never really were on enough on phone or CW to get them. And yeah, I think that's about it. Just been chasing some DX, working around the house, and getting ready for the next activation. I went up to the Flagstaff Ham Fest on Friday night. Spent some time in Flagstaff. Even I did a little bar hopping and checked out some of the microbrews up there. And the next day, I got to hang out with Charlie and listen to him give a presentation, along with Keith, KR7RK. It was a good time. It was for the first time Flagstaff Ham Fest. Happened a long time. It was a good showing.
Yeah, it was not bad. Okay, Dan, what have you been up to?
Well, I did not make it to the Flagstaff Ham Fest, so that was kind of a bummer. But I spent the weekend celebrating my wife's birthday, so that was a lot of fun. So got that taken care of. And let's see, I've been preparing for a teaching event that I'm going to do with some young men. Looks like it's going to get pushed out a little bit due to the heat here in the valley. So we may look for a different venue other than the top of a local mountain here, which means that I don't have anything to do Wednesday night. So looks like I have to go and do a morning mini madness on Thursday morning. So it looks like I'm going to be activating Lone Mountain on Thursday.
All right. That sounds good. Yeah, that's the one. I just did that one recently and drove off the mountain, but because it has the killer bees on there, the Africanized bees. So hopefully your results are better than mine, where I had to get the 4 contacts in a matter. I think it took 1 minute and 30 seconds for me to make the 4 contacts before I got down off that mountain.
Well, I'm counting on the fact that you took them all home with you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, okay. Yeah, cool.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what, I worry more about the Africanized bees than I do about the snakes here, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
For those of you who might be new, we live in Arizona. Temperature's been, I think the high yesterday was 118. I don't know what it is today, but it's very hot. But the heat and I think the bees are the two things to worry about here. The snakes don't show around too much, do they, Brian?
Yeah, no, not right now. The only thing the snakes are doing is trying to find a cold place. And here at the superstation, it's 116.6 degrees, according to the weather station outside.
Yuck.
And it's supposed to be like that on Thursday. But fortunately, if there's any bees left, we'll see how we can fare with those. At least I could still outrun the rattlesnakes. So
there you go. All right. Well, what I've been up to for the last couple of weeks is I had that activation, but Sandy and I, especially just this last week, my wife Sandy, W7NRS, and I took a trip to the Four Corners area. So that's Arizona, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, right where they all meet. First day, we drove up to the View, which is a hotel that overlooks the Monument Valley. Spent the night there. It was probably my favorite part of the trip. Just had some great views of Monument Valley. From there, the next day we drove into to Four Corners area, and then on up to Mesa Verde in Colorado, which is a national park. And we did some portable operations there from the national parks on a couple of the summits. So it was kind of a dual SOTA POTA activation, 2 of them, one each day that we were there. Did some tours of some of the Pueblo dwellings, and then head out on back down and got home, and we were really tired, but that was a good 4-day road trip that we enjoyed. So that was what we were up to. All right. So let's talk to our host here, or not our host, our guest, Anne. So you're up, Anne. What have you been up to?
Hello. Well, I was doing 13 colonies last weekend also. I had a lot of fun doing that. I got all of them also except the GB13 COL. Never even tried them. I had a radio club meeting with one of my local clubs in Sheboygan on Wednesday, and we had a fox hunt afterwards. So that was a lot of fun. I was able to find the fox, so I was pretty excited about that. Got to try out a new HT that I had bought from a silent key. So I had one for the local repeater so we could talk to the guys, and then the other one was with my tape measure antenna that I had, that I made part of it during, we had a little work project one time at one of my other local clubs in Manitowoc County here, the Aries group, and I was able to attend a couple of those, so I made part of it, so that was kind of successful. And then did some CWTs on Wednesday, which I usually like to try to do, and then did some NAQP CW over the weekend, and swished in there were some unexpected emergency room visits to a friend and a family member that been keeping me busy the last couple of days too. So it's been kind of a week. Looking forward to things settling down a little bit.
Yeah. So that's tough when you have stuff like that going on. I honestly, I really appreciate you still making the time to join us, and I know that you when things are busy like that, it can be tough. But thank you so much, and thank you for just being here. It's great. I was kind of looking into you a little bit. There's so much of your life. Before the stream started, Anne was talking about how it's just a spider web of different organizations and things that she's in the center of it. It's so true. You have your fingers in a lot of stuff. It was kind of hard to kind of whittle away some of the stuff and focus on some others so that we could. Otherwise, we'd be here for 2 or 3 hours talking about you. So we have some good questions for you and lined up. But let's just get to know you a little bit first. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background, kind of about yourself, specifically, stuff that maybe isn't ham radio operating related, just kind of who you are?
Okay, I had kind of like a whole life before I became a ham radio operator. I didn't get my license till I was 57 years old, so a kind of a late bloomer in that respect. I grew up on a dairy farm in northeast Wisconsin in Manitowoc County. We had 31 cows. We milked cows, but I did not. My mom wouldn't let us milk the cows, so spent my summer vacation baling hay. And I was driving tractor when I was 9 years old, and my dad would get me started and then hop on off the tractor and go and do his chores, and then come back in and then hop on whenever I had to stop the tractor or whatever. So that was what I did. Didn't really have a lot of time for hobbies. Anything we did do, which was, back in the day, 50, 60 years ago, was knitting and crocheting and domestic kind of things like that. Did go to college for a while, kind of stopped and started that a couple of times, did some mostly clerical work as far as my jobs, so little light assembly. Got married in 1982, 1989. I had my first daughter and left the workforce for about 6-7 years until they got old enough to be in school. And then I started out as a volunteer in the classrooms and the computer labs, and did a little bit of just volunteering, some substituting as an aide, substituting as a secretary, and eventually took a job as a special ed aide for a couple of years, and then finished my career as the bookkeeper for the school district. And I did that for 10 years before I retired in 2018.
Wow, just that part. I mean, that's a lot right there. You just strike me as a person who's very motivated and active, and likes to be involved in a lot of stuff. Why do you think that is? What's because not everybody does all the things that you do. What do you think that is?
I kind of did that. I remember in high school, if there was a club, I was in the club. I just liked to be. I don't know if it was just so boring on the farm that I was just looking for an outlet. Maybe it was part of that. But I wasn't sporty. Didn't really have neighbors that we could chum around with or anything. So I guess I just looked at those extracurricular activities as just like my creative outlet, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. We're just going to go round robin and ask questions. I've got my first one out of the way. We'll just go to Brian, Dan, and then back to me, and we'll just go in that order. So go ahead, Brian. You're muted.
All right, so I'm the you're muted guy this time. We'll get that out of the way. Nobody else has to do that now. So what got you started in ham radio? And
Okay, I was actually on Facebook one night, and a good friend of mine, KE8IL, who is ham up in Upper Michigan, and he's a brother of a good friend and neighbor of mine. And I knew he was a ham, but that was all I really knew about what his ham radio was. That I just knew he was a ham. And he posted on Facebook during the UP200 sled dog race up in 2011. The local repeater club up there in Marquette, Michigan, streams the audio from the repeater 24/7 on the internet on their webpage. So he said, "Oh, check into that, and listen to the volunteers were manning all the different checkpoints." So I checked into that and was listening for a couple of hours, and most of it was, Team 23 just went checkpoint Grand Marais or whatever, and they were just checking the teams as they went on and off and through the route. Some of it they were handling traffic, that for the ham radio people as far as managing traffic, because if there were snowmobiles and things like that to get across the road to make sure that the animals were and the riders were all safe. And one of the teams actually got lost, and they had to send out rescues snowmobiles to get them, which kind of made things a little more exciting than what I think they intended. But it kept me listening for a couple of hours until everybody was all safe. So anyway, short story, the next day I'm chatting with him on Facebook, and I said, "Wow, that was really interesting, listening to what was going on." And he said, "Oh my gosh, Annie," he said, "you should get your ham radio license." And I said, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of." I said, "I'm sure it takes a lot of expertise and electronics and equipment and big, heavy, expensive things." And I said, "I don't have any, electronics knowledge, and I'm sure it's very expensive. And I'm sure you have to have some sort of expertise." And he said, "You can buy a ham radio for less than $100 that fits in your pocket." And he said, 9-year-olds can pass the test. So I realized that ham radio was something completely different than what I certainly had pictured in my mind. And I went to the library and got a copy of the book, Now We're Talking, Now You're Talking, and started reading about that. And it talked about talking to the International Space Station and bouncing signals off the moon. And I thought, what the heck could be cooler than that? So
Yeah.
got my license. I started, there was a local ham radio club. There was the Aries group. And I started going to their classes, even though I wasn't a licensed person, and got my license in April of 2011. And then started going to their meetings and just checking into the local repeater with my H team.
Cool. Cool. That's a great story.
that's awesome. I think Dan's got it next.
There we go, and I can unmute my mic as well. So after you got your license, it sounds like you probably spent some time on the repeaters. So what kind of enticed you to get on the HF bands and then ultimately decide that you wanted to learn CW? Kind of how was that progression?
Okay, well, that would have been field day. What I was doing, checking into the local repeaters on the weekly nets, which I thought, I thought that was a big part of what ham radio was. And I had to walk about a mile up the road to the highway interchange because that was the only place I could hit the repeater with my little handy talkie. Didn't get very far. And then the local club had field day. So they set up a HF station for that. And they had a nice script written out, and all you had to do was just say what was in the typed words, and it took me about 3 hours to get enough ambition and guts to bravery to be able to do that. And I made one contact, and the first one was to Michigan. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And then the second contact I made was to Ohio. I thought, well, that's pretty cool too. So it's like, well, that was it. Then I was going to have to get my general license so that I could be able to do that on my own. So started training for that. I had a lot of trouble with the material. Tech license I had basically taught myself. They say that it takes 10 hours to be able to go through the material and learn everything, I spent about 100 hours on that tech license because I didn't have any kind of electronics background or anything like that. So the tech license, I understood. The general material was just really difficult for me. I couldn't visualize a lot of the things. So I actually took a class that was sort of a marathon class, Friday evening, all day Saturday, and half a day Sunday in Wisconsin Rapids. And then they tested afterwards. And there were 3 of us that took the test. 2 of us got the license. I got the best score, but that was okay. So then, got a little taste of HF. My former S-Key Elmer NZ9Z found radio that was available. My eye doctor actually was selling his equipment. He was getting more into his steam engine hobby and out of ham radio. So I bought his setup and we got that established here in the basement and got a G5RV Junior. So $35 antenna in the backyard. And the first contact I made was with the Canary Islands, and that was pretty darn exciting. So I like it when I have to look up on a map to see who I was just talking to. So, so that was, it's like, okay, now I'm an HF operator, and I was doing one of the first contacts that I made that I was unsupervised after John had left, and had a very nice conversation with a guy, and he was telling me about that he was a VE, and talking about his ham radio career. And back then, I have terrible handwriting. So I would jot down the contacts I made, and then I would rewrite them into my logbook. And I'm writing it into my logbook, and I'm thinking, boy, that frequency just doesn't look right. I had actually been transmitting out of band, so just a little bit. So it's like, okay, looks like we're going to be going for the amateur extra, so I don't have to worry about that. So that began. Then I got my amateur extra in 2016, I believe. And then, yeah, it just kind of like my dad has said about my ham radio career. He said it's like I discovered my second childhood. It's just such a fascinating hobby, and there's so many different facets to go to, and it's just I have to rein myself in sometimes because
Yeah.
there's just so many things to do, and so many things that I want to do, and it's just physically impossible to do it all.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. And I think that that a lot of YLs, in fact, just a lot of people can relate to the whole idea of not having an electronics background and kind of that journey of getting licensed, even though you don't have that background. Even myself, I didn't have that background. I actually went to a community college to get some of that background, but it was still after I had already been licensed. So it's definitely encouraging, hopefully, for some people to just realize that you don't have to know a lot about electronics to get involved in ham radio. Yeah.
Well, and when we finished when we passed our general exams, and one of the guys that was the head guy that was running the class for the weekend, and he said, now the learning begins. And he said that's really true. You get the license, you got the piece of paper, you got the thing that you can hang on your wall. But until you really start getting on the air and operating, that's when you really start learning.
Yeah. Yep, cool. So you talked a little bit about how you got into HF. Let's hear a little bit more about your Morse code journey, and specifically, there's 2 questions there, I guess. How do we do this? So I'm interested in kind of your progression in Morse code, but then I also wanted to know a little bit about what the Long Island CW YL only session is that you guys do. So I guess maybe start with the progression of your CW, and then end with tell us a little bit about that YL session.
Okay, the CW, I had really not interest, but I figured it would be hard to learn. I was in a contest club, Society of Midwest Contesters, and they were entered in some club competitions, and they did the sideband, of course, but then there was also RTTY and CW, and I thought, well, RTTY is probably going to be a lot easier to learn than CW, so that was the direction I went there. But I was on a YL Echolink net one Thursday night, and KM4LAO, Ruth, was a college student, and she just piped in and said that she had just finished her CW ops training, and she said CW is like the most awesome mode in the world. And I thought, boy, if she likes it that much, it certainly is something that I should at least check out. So I signed up right away for the level 1 and took level 1 class and level 2 class. wasn't as happy with my progress as I would have liked. So I actually took the level, and that just for some reason that one seemed to click. I had a friend that was in the level 1 or the level 2 classes with me, happened to be from Wisconsin, and he and I would get together in between and have like little study sessions, and we would practice. So we did that. While when I finished the second round of the level 2, I had just been finishing up my career. I was leaving my job, writing training manuals, training the new person, um, very ambivalent about if I really wanted to retire in the first place, and taking the CW Ops class, and was just really quite overwhelmed. So I actually kind of stepped away from the hobby for a little bit. The one of my former teachers, K5 GQ, Mark, got in touch with me, and he said, "Would I mind being a long on CW Ops study buddy with someone?" And he found me a gal, W4CMG from Nashville, just about my age, just about getting ready to retire also, and she was just starting her Morse code journey. So she and I would meet while she was taking her classes once or twice throughout the week, and how we got to learn to get to know each other would be kind of like by CW drills. And what's your favorite color? My favorite color is, do you have a pet? No, I have no pet, or I have a dog. My dog's name is whatever. So we use CW as a way to kind of get to know each other, which was a lot of fun. And it helped her also while she was taking her classes. Right around that time, COVID came, and our sessions sort of started talk into more just talking classes, get-togethers, just because it was just everybody needed a little bit of break from something, and I think that was what we took that as an advantage. But meanwhile, she's become one of my dear friends, and I actually got to meet her 2 years ago in Dayton, so that was
Nice.
fun to be able to meet with her. Um, right around that time, also in 2020, I was invited to be a guest on Ham Nation, and W4LEA, Leanne, was one of the fellow guests, and she was talking about how she was teaching a YL only CW class in the Long Island CW Club. And I thought that was something that I thought was kind of a nice thing that some YLs would be drawn to. So I joined the club and started taking some classes through there. I actually kind of ended up being sort of a co-host for Leanne, because there were several of the ladies who had just wide ranges of experience and expertise. So she would do the strictly instructional, teaching the gals the letters, and I would go into the breakout room with some of the more experienced ops, and then we would do little training sessions, or we'd do word games and things like that, just to um, be able to keep our skills up and just add a little bit more fun to that. So that morphed into a Saturday. That was, I think, we met on Saturdays. Saturdays ended up being bad for her, so she started doing Sundays, and I kept going to Saturdays. And then she ended up moving to a different state, relocating with her husband. So I ended up taking the 2 days, which was kind of getting to be a lot.
Yeah.
And I told Howard WB2UZE, the founder, we're one of the founders of Long Island CW Club. I said, I'm going to take a break for the summer, and we'll regroup in the fall. And meanwhile, the Long Island CW Club membership was just kind of really exploding. It turned out that you
Anne, it looks like you're muted, or your mics. There you go.
how about that? Back now?
Yep.
It's okay now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So then back to fall. So then I told Howard, I said, how about if we just have an open house? I said, the Long Island CW Club is so supportive to all the women. There's 70 classes that they teach throughout the week. Said, you don't need another instructional class. So we just opened it up as the YL open house. And we have ladies that check in. I've got about a half a dozen that are my regulars that always pop in. And we troubleshoot if people are having trouble with things. We give moral support. We answer questions. I always run through contests that are coming up, different activities that are going on. So it's kind of like a current event sort of thing too. And it's just worked out real well. So that's what we've been doing that for probably about 2 years now. So
Well, good for you. That's amazing. That's great. The Long Island CW YL only session. I'm sure that you make it a safe place for people, for some of the YLs, so that they can feel a little bit more comfortable with Morse code. In fact, Janice Emery here says, because of Anne and the LICW YLs, I am studying for my extra and learning CW.
oh, that's very sweet.
Isn't it? That's great. And then of course, you said the quarantine Catholic. Yeah, she's she's nothing but glowing about you. She says that you're awesome, an awesome mentor, and she likes the class too. So, or the meetup. So very good.
Did it freeze? I just lost you guys for a second there.
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, we're here.
Oh, sorry about that. So I wanted to ask you about the excuse me, I lost my train of thought for a second there. The YL club, the YLRL. My wife actually attended the forum at Hamvention for that, and she enjoyed it. So I was just curious what your involvement was like in that.
Okay, how I found them was WB1ERU was calling very lonely one night on, I think it was a Wednesday night several years ago on 14.288, calling CQYL, and nobody was coming back to her. And I thought, well, I'm a YL, so I'll just come back to her. Nobody else is. And just got to chat, and she started telling me about the club, and I ended up joining that. And right now I'm the DX treasurer. I manage the DX membership. We've got about 100 overseas members. We've got about 450-ish total members throughout the world. I am the treasurer for the DX ladies, so I manage their memberships. And kind of a nice thing we have too is adoptee sponsorship. Most of the gals that are DX are sponsored by U.S. counterparts. So then meanwhile, we don't have to worry about the currency exchange. And it's just a nice kind of a pen pal relationship, I guess. I've got 3 adoptees, one in the Philippines, one in Japan, and one in South Africa. And some are more active than others, but you just kind of have a little social relationship with them. A lot of our matches, ladies have met each other in person through their travels throughout the year. So I have met one of mine. Yuki came to visit she was one of the speakers at Hamvention a couple years ago. So I got a chance to meet her from Japan. So that was fun. The purpose of the club is to encourage and assist YLs on their ham radio journey. We do every other month newsletter that we send out by email now. A couple get paper copies, but most of it is EL. We kind of converted to that a couple years ago. It saves a lot of money on our postage and helps our treasury. We give out $5,000 worth of scholarships every year to YLs that are ham operators. We have contests. We sponsor certificates. At the YL, we do have the membership booth at the Hamvention, and we do have the forum. We've done that for the past couple of years too as well. And then at Hamvention. Nets, we have some Echolink nets, HF nets, local nets also that are just kind of strictly YL only. We had a convention in 2018 in Oklahoma City. I went to that, and it was just wonderful, hotter than blazes, but boy, we had a wonderful time. And we're planning on having another convention in 2024. So right now that's kind of in the preliminary works. They're looking for a location and ladies that'll help get things going.
Cool. Very good.
So I know in one of my CW ops classes that I took quite a while ago, we had a YL that was in our class, and she picked up CW very quickly, which was great. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if YLs just are more in tune to it, because I'm terrible at it. But what would you say to other women who are out there wanting to learn CW, you know, as far as approach and best way to get involved in learning CW?
I guess I don't know why male or female would have any advantage or disadvantage learning. I guess I think everybody's just really unique anyway. And I don't know why that would be a factor, I guess. Um, Time, I think, for anybody is a big factor. Consistency in learning. You really have to make your mind to do it and then, not do it for a week and forget about it for a month. You have to just really, really be consistent. I found out one thing that was good for me with the CW, Ops CW Academy was that you had the structure. I'm a big checklist person. And, you had your 2 1-hour classes during the week. I think we met on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then you were expected to do, I think it was whatever half-hour amount of homework every single day. And for me, that was something that was really important. I tried going back to college one time, sort of a learn as you go thing when that was sort of in its infancy. And I just didn't do well. I just really need the structure. The challenge of it was very challenging for me. I have a little bit of hearing impairment. So, with the hearing aid, sometimes I don't think I hear things that other people hear. So, I'm quite musical, and people say that's supposed to be an advantage. I don't think that helped me at all. Just my age and just the hearing that you lose throughout the growth of years, just which is with the aging process, certainly it wasn't my advantage either. I like a lot of variety in my training too. I like to do different things. There's apps, there's websites, there's I sometimes get bored with the way that I train. Um, Even just taking every opportunity. Some people have said, oh, as you're going along, do all the street signs or something, and just use your fingers and work the code. And I kind of live in the middle of nowhere, and I'm in a real small town that doesn't have any basically street signs. So when I'm out for my walks, I'll plug in my MP3 player and listen to Morse Ninja.
Oh yeah.
ADOWE. Kurt does a real good job, and he's got thousands and thousands of hours of different training tapes. The main ones are combinations of letters and numbers, and you don't know what it's going to be. So it's not going to be 3 letters or 3 numbers. It's kind of mixing up. So that's something that I like to do. The Just to challenge yourself, I think, is also very important. Just to not just keep listening to the same thing at the same time, at the same speed. You're not going to get any better. You have to use practice tools where you do make mistakes every once in a while, because that's how you're going to learn and get and improve your speed and improve your head copy. Head copy is my biggest struggle, I think, and maybe will always be, but it's just something you just kind of persevere and
Yeah, I
practice,
always
practice, practice. That's how you get the
Yep.
Carnegie. So practice, practice, practice.
Yep, that was my hardest point, was being consistent in practice. But I also like the structured classes as well, and especially the fun things that you experienced within those classes. Like, for example, going shopping. So you'd uh, say what you're going shopping for over CW, and you had to figure out what it was. So it's use kind of common things that everybody should know, and then it's a matter of stringing it together. So those kind of things were a lot of fun in those classes.
Yeah. So you kind of answered this question, so I'm going to rephrase it a little different. So the kind of one of the questions I had was, what's the most common struggles that YLs have with learning Morse code? But you're like, yeah, it's there's no correlation between gender on that. So I guess, is there any struggles that you see that maybe YLs have that men don't, or OMs don't, or whatever you want to call it? Is there do women have any struggles in the hobby at all that men seem to not be aware of, that you could teach us about?
Well, part of it is that I think some people just see this as a man's hobby, and they just kind of think that YLs are maybe just sort of like intruding into their space, or maybe aren't going to be as good and aren't going to be able to handle it. And um, we're not just there to do the potlucks, and we're not just there to be officers. And just through some of my experiences, I think I run into some men that just maybe aren't real good to talking to women. And maybe
Mm.
they've, I guess, and as old as I am, I can say that a lot of these men, I'm sure, have been worked in a shop for 50 years, and the only interaction that they had with women were maybe in their own household, and just not that they necessarily see us as threatening, but they're just kind of not sure why we're here. I mean, we're a minority in the first place, just being ham radio operators, and then being a YL, you're even a subset of that. And I've gotten a lot. I'm not really a very outgoing, forthcoming person. I always considered myself a little bit on the shy side, and I've learned to be able to be a lot more bolder just because I've got this community of people that share the same passion for the same hobby that I do, and it's I'm able to mingle with them. But you got to get used to being the only girl in the room, because a lot of times that's what you are. When I go to my club meetings, I'll go to ham fests, and there just aren't too many of us, and it's just, and like you said, some people think we might have hard because they're just girls. They're not going to be able to get this, and there's some people that just feel that way, and it's just the environment that's where they grew up. It's a whole different age with my kids that are growing up now. Didn't have a lot of those experiences that I had. I grew up when I was in high school before Title IX, and girls didn't do sports. I couldn't join FFA. I couldn't take shop classes because girls just didn't do that kind of stuff. And the ham radio operation tends to be kind of a little more aged group as well too. So I think a lot of them have just that preconceived notion. So that's my thing. You're going to hear people say inappropriate things once in a while, and you just have to deflect that and realize that they're not directly aiming that necessarily at you, and just can't take it personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of curious what specific facets you enjoy in CW. I mean, are you more of a rancher, or do you like contests? Do you like, chasing like SOTA or POTA kind of things, or that kind of stuff? I was kind of curious what you enjoy most about that specific area.
Okay. I like to contest. I really do. Again, we didn't have sports when I was in school. If there were sports, I wouldn't have done it. I was more of a forensics kind of girl. So um, I really enjoy the contesting. I like the fast pace of it. I can see my little score popping up. So, I can see my progress. I don't necessarily have to compete against other people. I can just compete at myself and feel good about that. Just for the 13 colonies this year, I did 7 of those contacts QRP, and I was pretty excited about that. So next year, my goal is to do all of them, to see if I can get all of them QRP. Won't worry about the GB13 COL. We'll never do that one, but I'd like to get, just get bigger, faster. I kid with people, and I tell them, I says, they say, what's your ham radio goal, and your CW goal, and I said, my goal is for people to think that I'm as good as as they think I am, because I just happen to be in the right circles. People recognize me. I got a recognizable call sign that kind of sticks out. I just happen to, sometimes I'm just right in the right place at the right time, talking to the right people. So I would really love to be able to rag chew. Don't really have any particular interest in it. I'd like to be really competent at 30 words a minute is really kind of like my goal right now. POTA, I'd like to get into some portable operation. My 13 colonies that I did, it's 2 weekends ago already. I was actually doing that on my back porch. So I had my portable radio out and was testing out some antennas. I had my Wolf River coil set up and was doing a little bit of fine tuning with that. I got a new antenna analyzer, so I was playing around with that and trying to get a CW hookup, we were having a little problems with that with a straight key. I was trying to get that going. So that's my next project right there, to get the straight key going with the portable radio, and to get a compact set up so that I can go out and do some POTA.
Cool. Catherine Goodrich here says the cool thing about being a YL is in CW is that no one knows you're a YL until they hear your name or you're a repeat in their log. Yeah.
Yep. And
Yep.
then she's a good friend, my good friend. She was my CW ops buddy. And one thing that we talk about frequently is that we don't want to be known as a good YL operator. We want to be known as a good operator, and
Right.
don't necessarily feel that this, granted, we take advantage if somebody says, can the YL come back on sideband? I'll be first to jump right in there. I don't mind that at
I
all.
was
But, also we don't want to be patronized either and feel like, oh, we have to give her special accommodations because she's a YL. We don't want that. And boy, you lose that on CW.
I was going to say during the 13 Colonies event, my wife learned about the 20 dB YL advantage several times.
Mhm.
In fact, she got GB13 COL on the first call on phone.
Oh, good job.
Oh, it was hysterical. It was hysterical. You hear this very faint, the YL ending in Echo Victor Echo. And I'm like, that's you, hun, go.
Ah.
Got him on the first
Yeah.
call.
Well, and again, we'll take that as an advantage as it is, but we don't want to be the person expecting to be making the potluck at field day, and then they just grab us and say, "Quick, throw your call sign out," just because they want to use our voice.
Yeah.
We just
Well,
that to me that's a little patronizing to me, and I don't care
Yep.
for that.
We were fortunate at our field day that we had 3 of our YLs that got on the radio, and they had a great time, and it was a lot of fun to see them enjoy operating on there. So I'm looking forward to that again next year.
One of the other portable things that I do like to do is the EAA Air Venture, and that's coming up the
Oh.
end of July. And we
Next
set up
week.
a station right in the middle of there's a kid venture it's called, and they've got 2 different tracks. One is an aviation track and one is, I think, a mechanic track. And they have these kids that are doing soldering, and they make the little airplane things and they put them in machines with wind, and they can see how their air goes, how their wings go, and they do spot welding, they do the simulators. And we're right next door to them, and we've got a 20-meter radio set up, and people can come up and just get on the air, and it's amazing. We'll drag these kids in and say, oh, you want to get on the air? Or sometimes they'll ask. And I had one young man that was a middle schooler a couple years ago, and he knew the phonetics alphabet, and he did an awesome job. And we just had a big piece of paper, and they would be on the radio, we would be logging for them, but we'd have little sentences on paper that say, what's your QTH? And we would just point to different things that they were supposed to say if they were a little bit mic shy, and just had a ball. And the EARRL got smart a couple years ago and offered people who showed up at their booth at the EAA, and if they signed up for a membership, they got a license guide. So I'm thinking there's going to be a lot more ham radio operators to come that'll pop out at our booth, and just say that they got their license just because of getting on the air at the EAA and gotten the exposure.
I could
Yeah,
tell you from
that's
go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Go ahead, Brian.
When you're done, I was going to jump in and say, as my profession, I think, as you might figure out by the call sign, I'm a commercial pilot by profession, and one of the things I've learned from being a ham and a commercial pilot is there are a lot of hams that are pilots, and there are a lot of what I call airplane buffs that are hams. I run into them all the time. In fact, there's a large group of guys that I get together with for lunch once a week on Thursday, and a good portion of them are airplane buffs or pilots as well. So it's a good, I think it's a good match for that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's an awesome event. There's 10,000 planes that come in and take off during that week. It's just fascinating. Years ago, it used to be just like a little club that started out in Milwaukee, and it's morphed into this hundreds of thousands of people, 7-day event. It's just amazing.
Yeah, if you get a chance, because that starts next week, and it's an awful lot of fun to listen on Broadcastify or something like that to the aviation channels. They always have it on there, and they always have cameras on their website too to watch, and you can listen and watch how they bring planes in and how they take off, and it's just an amazing orchestration of aircraft. So if you've never seen it, check it out. So it's well worth spending a little bit of time.
2 years ago, they added one of the sections to the Kid Venture, and they actually make a little 40-meter receiver, and they can actually listen to the air traffic control tower.
Oh, that's
so
fantastic.
you can see, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds sitting there with Elmers that were helping them and soldering these antennas, and then they plug in the little earphone, and they can hear the air traffic control, and it's just amazing.
So I don't know whose turn it is now. Is it Brian? Is it your turn, or did you go already?
I think I went already, but
Okay,
I mean,
that's fine. I was going to ask you a couple questions, but I wanted to make sure that anybody who's watching live or listening live, go ahead and if you have a question for Anne, go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll make sure we bring it up and have her answer it for you the best she can. Of course, we'll filter them. But also, Anne, a friend of mine. I don't know if you probably don't. I don't know whether you know him or not. He's also a YouTuber. His name is Kyle. His Alpha 0 Z is his call sign, and he's from St. Louis, Missouri. He has a Monday I think it's every other Monday. It might be every Monday. I think it's every other Monday live stream. And all he does is talk about Morse code and just different aspects of Morse code. And we were kind of talking offline a little bit about how we're just a bunch of white males on there talking all the time, and he wanted to diversify a little bit. So I don't know, maybe I don't know how busy you are, but and I don't want to put you on the spot either. But it might be something that where you could help us and our community a little bit by diversifying a little bit with that stream. If you hop on every once in a while, I'll connect you to him offline a little bit. But those of you who are watching who don't know, he does have a great live stream every other Monday, and it's just all about learning CW. So it's another resource, I guess. All right, so I don't see any questions popping up, so let's just go to the next one. Maybe Dan, you want to ask the next one?
Yeah. Key preferences. Do you like straight key, bugs, or paddles? What's your flavor?
Oh, geez, I just like them all. I've got I used to have a bencher, that was what I trained on. We had to learn CW on paddles for CW Ops, CW Academy. So that was really all I ever really used. I would try out different keys at Dayton, and they were appealing, but I guess nothing really hit me in particular. When I joined LICW Club, they do a lot of straight key focus. So I got just a little $35 straight key and started playing with that. And by joining the SKCC, Straight Key Century Club, is also really promoted in the Long Island CW Club. So I joined that as well. They have a lot of activities. There are a lot of events that they have, contests and things during the month, and plateaus that you can reach, and I mean accomplishments, I guess, but as far as plateaus, not stagnant. But they've got a lot of things that'll also push you and can encourage you to spend more time on the air. So I realized that I was going to want a little bit nicer straight key. Played around with a couple of different ones. I've got about 4 or 5 of them right behind me here that just kind of I swap out off and on. But what I've got now is a Bengali blade, which is like awesome. Just really, really like that. My paddle, I saw the advantage of maybe switching to a single paddle. I had tried those out and kind of like the feel of those. So I've got a N3ZN single lever paddle. And both of these keys I bought from friends, and love them both. I also do keyboard sending. I'm not shy about that. When I do the CWTs on Wednesday, there's no way I'm going to be sending at 35 words a minute. So I do the keyboard sending as well. So which I have to be kind of careful with, because if I do too much of that, then you lose your skills on the paddle and the straight key. So because I haven't been a ham for years and years and years, and haven't learned this 40-50 years ago, and it's all in my brain and in my fingers, I have to make sure that I keep those skills up. So that's something that I have to get back into every once in a while so that I don't lose it.
That's interesting. Do you so you use straight key? You started out with straight key then?
No, started out with paddle,
and then you moved to straight key. How would you say your proficiency is with straight key? What's your speed, do you think, and how's your fist?
Certainly slower, just because of the mechanism of the straight key, and again because I haven't really had it for really long. and been doing it for really long. So I mean, you can only go so fast on the straight key
It's
too.
so true. Yeah.
So you're limited by the mechanics of it, but it's Long Island CW Club stresses that it makes a better brain hand connection, and your brain and ear and straight key. And I believe that to be true, but I also learned on a paddle, and that was just the way that I learned. So it's
Yeah.
just kind of a personal preference.
Yeah. The quarantine Catholic says, nice taste of keys, Anne. And yeah, tell me what's the blade? Is that a paddle or a straight key?
Can I show you here, maybe?
Yeah. Okay, it's a straight key then. Wow.
Yep.
A nice one.
Yep, it's nice. It weighs a couple of pounds, so it's pretty hefty.
Yeah. Very good. All right, we do have a question here for you from Robert Varner. He says, does she do FT8?
Oh man, are you going to shame me if I do FT8? It's such a controversial thing. I did do FT8 in the past. I was always going to learn, what is it, JS9, and then I never got around to that. And then there was JS, something else, and whatever. They were kind of going through the series, making things bigger, better, faster. And I didn't get into it at all until they came up with FT8. And I thought, oh, I'm kind of glad I waited, because it was just a lot quicker. It was fun. I didn't feel that it was fun, but I guess I want something that I put a little bit more effort into, I guess, on my own. I can see the fun of it. I can understand the thrill of it and why people want to do it. People want, old time hams want new time hams to get into the hobby and get on the air. Well, it certainly has gotten people on the air, just having that mode available. When I was trying to do a RIDI contest, and it turned out that all my audio settings had gotten screwed up because of the FT8 setup. So I kind of just stepped away from that and stayed with what I've got. I don't like a lot of software changing things, whatever. I'm just not real comfortable doing that and troubleshooting with things like that. So it's just something that I never have gotten back into. It's for me, I just enjoy CW so much. I just really don't see the desire to get back into FT8, but I can see it certainly has its place and people do enjoy it. So
That's understandable. Yeah, for sure. To each their own, right?
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say about the FT8, when people ask me, I say, if you're not really up on propagation or understanding what's happening with the propagation, if you do FT8 and you look at the PSK reporter while you're doing it, you get a really good feel for propagation. You can watch the signals change as the gray line moves across the map. So they're for someone who's relatively new to HF, you can actually pick up a lot by just watching what's going on and listening to what's happening and seeing the signals come through. If you also pair it with the PSK reporter. So I that's when I talk about FT8, I tell people, for me at least, it did a lot early on, especially low band stuff, 80, 160 meters. I learned a lot about the propagation on those bands just by watching the FT8 activity and seeing how the propagation changed. And you could see it happening real time.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed too. You could just, by the signals that were coming in, you could just see, coming across the country.
Yeah. Janice says, I just want to say thank you to Anne for introducing me to my great Elmer. With my great Elmer, I wouldn't be where I am today without ham radio.
Nice.
Thanks.
And that's one good thing about having some kind of connection, whether it's a club, whether it's an online group, whether it's a class that you're taking. It's just so important to be networking and to be able to feel you've got a place where you can go, where you can ask a question, where you can get somebody that will help you if you just need a little bit of cheerleading for whatever reason. And that's one reason why I like the different clubs that are kind of for that reasons. I get different things from different clubs, and it's just helped me on my ham radio journey.
Yeah, and you know what? It's really surprising, but we're almost out of time. We've got 5 minutes left, and man, you're such a great a guest. You you're very enjoyable to listen to and very instructive. So, but we got to wrap it up here pretty soon with just the 5 minutes left. Let me remind everybody that we have our friend Jason, Ham Radio 2.0, who will be following this stream. He's I'll put a link up if I can get it here in just a minute, so you can move on over and check him out. I think he's going to have the president of the Huntsville Hamfest on. They're going to talk about the Huntsville Hamfest, which is pretty cool. So, but anyway, back to us. I think I'm just going to go around, do a little round robin here real quick, and get any final thoughts from any of you guys that you have. I wanted to start with Ann, though, and just say, what would you say to any YLs who are new to the hobby, or who are just having a desire to learn Morse code and are new to that? Is there anything you would offer to the new YLs that are just trying, or people that are maybe some YLs that are just considering getting into the hobby?
Okay, especially for the CW aspect of things, I would just say to try to find a study buddy, somebody that you can connect with on a regular basis, and doesn't necessarily have to be the same level as you, but it probably would be a little bit more helpful, just so that you can encourage each other and troubleshoot each other and join. Find a club. If one club doesn't seem particularly welcome to you, find another club. Or if there's a class that you think is too hard or too fast, pick another one. That's one thing that the Long Island CW Club really has an advantage of. With 70 classes each week, there's it's certainly not one size fits all. It's it's you can find something for any kind of interest that you have. And the one nice thing too about ham radio is it's a hobby you can kind of put on the shelf for a while if something happens in your life. And I had shoulder surgery 2 years ago, and boy, that put a damper in my ham radio because I couldn't get down in the basement for a couple of months. And I came back and my radios were still here. Had trouble finding the microphone because I don't use that very often. But it just keep at it. Find a group that you can feel comfortable with, and consistency, I think, too, especially in CW, is the big thing to just set aside, even if it's not every single day, but at least several times a week, and just spend a little bit of a time, listen to the I call them tapes because I'm old. Listen to MP3s or whatever, or audio files, and find software you like. Put an app on your phone. There's just so many with the technology that's available these days. There's just so many ways and opportunities to be able to reach out and either network or find tools that will help you on your journey.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And Robert Werner says she should have a YouTube channel.
Oh my goodness. If he knew how nervous I was doing just this. But thank you.
Yeah. And then my good friend Ian from Australia, he says, thanks for the stream. Hope to hear Ann on Straight Key Century Club sometime. So VK5CZ is a good friend of mine. Although I've never met him, he's just a great guy. We exchange emails all the time. And so maybe, hopefully you two can get your I'm going to actually join Straight Key Century Club night here sometime soon too.
Okay, yeah, I've been kind of slacking on that. I got my key and then I kind of just went in different directions. So I got to get back into that again. That's a fun group.
Yeah. All right, Dan, closing thoughts?
I thought this has been really informative, and really enjoyed having you on the stream tonight. Really fantastic. I hope that more youth and ladies get on the air. I think it's it does nothing but help ham radio. Take and pulls away some of that mystique. You don't need to be an electrical engineer to be a ham radio operator. And it's a lot of fun. You never know who's going to be out of the other end of your conversation. And that's the most exciting part. All of a sudden you hear somebody, from Europe, and you have, something up that you are, wondering, well, how did I pull this in, with this antenna? But that's part of the magic, and that's the excitement of it.
And
I was going to say the same thing. Don't be afraid to operate. All of us on here are a great example of that. Especially when it comes to the code. I'm sure I don't speak for would agree with me on this. The worst thing you can do is not operate when you're doing the code. You're only gonna get better and more confident the more you operate. Just operate. Do the CW. Get out there. Don't be afraid. 12 words a minute. Who cares? Get on. They'll slow down to you if they don't. Just ignore them.
Yep. Cool. All right, Ann, that's it. I really appreciate you coming and especially under your circumstances, your personal circumstances. It was great that you were able to come on and share your time with us. People love you. It sounds like, which is great. Um, you're a great interviewer and a guest as well, and so I hope to see more of you myself. And if you could stick around and not hang up right or disconnect right after this, we'll have some post comments here, just the four of us before we wrap things up. But with that, guys, everybody listening, really appreciate your support for the All Portable Discussion Zone. Remember, we meet every other Sunday at 2300 UTC, and then occasionally we'll do a Saturday morning special guest for those who are across the pond. But thanks again, Ann, and thanks to Dan and Brian for being here. And go ahead and check out Ham Radio 2.0's stream, which is probably going right now. I put a link in the chat, but I'll put another one here real quick. And so with that, I'll say 73, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.